It's actually one of those songs that I play a lot whenever I do a covers gig. I do it almost every show. I love playing it. It's a great song to play. It's a great song to sing. I really enjoy the breadth of range that this track has, and really like getting those big fat low notes in the verses, and then being able to bring it up to the higher choruses. Something I always like to. I enjoy doing. The other reason was that it's also got a standard progression. It's a D, A, B minor, G. So it's a 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, the same as like countless other songs. So it actually left me a lot of room to move in terms of coming up with something that's totally different. And in a couple of places in this track, I actually changed the chord progression to suit what I wanted to do rather than suit the actual song. So, yeah. Yeah, when I started the arrangement, I wanted to do something totally different to what the Calling would do. So their original progression, following that D, A, B minor, G, it was very arpeggiated in the way that they approached it and really outlining the chords. I don't remember the exact part, but it was something like this. Or something along those lines anyway. And basically what I thought, well, is if I want to get away from that totally, I wanted to completely change the vibe of the song. So I was playing around with something that I do when I'm playing in drop tuning for songs like this, and also I use it for things like Wanted Dead or Alive or Higher by Creed. And I'll muck around with playing melodies over the top of that D, A, D power chord. So that type of idea, you know, and I started doing that years ago. It was one of the techniques that I came up with to play that intro for Higher from Creed. You know, that. So it's that type of idea, and basically what I did was really wanted to play around with that major 7 in the D there. So I started off with because I felt that was really exciting, going up from the E up to the F sharp down to the major 7th there. Then I went to the G, and then to the add 9 there, adding the add 9 just there at the end of the chord. And I felt that was a really exciting sounding type of riff that didn't really correlate to the way the original song goes. So I thought, well, yeah, I can really do something with that, you know. Yeah, after such a big intro, I had to really try and find something that was going to flow nicely after such a heavy attacked part. Without dropping too much, but also following the vocal melody and also doing the song justice for the part. So basically what I did was I started off with that major 7th to the 1 movement that's in the vocals and also repeated in the intro riff I came up with. So it's that note there. Because the vocal melody starts on that note and comes up to the tonic with that lay there, been wandering. So I thought, okay, well I can use that. And basically what I did was then take that major 7th, harmonised it with the A in the lower 5th, and so I've got that strong chord happening there already, and then just added the D and the A to that. So I'm getting a power chord. And then from there, all I did was change the chords to the chord pattern to suit the song. So I had the D to the A to the B minor to the G, and then so I've got that repeated all the way through. Yeah, and apart from that, the verses weren't overly complex. It was actually that major 7 thing that really stuck out for the verse for me, and also enabled me to only have the one guitar part in that verse and take the rest of the guitars out. So yeah, it really worked for me. Yeah, by the time I hit the chorus, it was I'd already established the main riff. I'd already had the verse, and I wanted to come somewhere in between. I needed to build from the verse, but I couldn't hit it as hard and as exciting, so to speak, as I had for the intro riff, because obviously I've got to take into account the chord changes. So basically what I did was cross the 2. I started with that D again with the major 7 to the 1, and then I reversed the lick around, so I'm then going from when I hit the A, I'm coming up from the E there down to the 5 down to the 4. And then I reverse it again when I go to the next chord, to the B minor, back to the major 7 to 1, that movement there. And then basically sit stagnant on those 2 notes when I come back to the G. So it ends up a relatively simple progression that's sort of like the verse and not quite the intro riff, but I can actually strum it a lot harder because I've also got the bass underneath playing those tonic notes, so it leaves me a bit of room to move and hit harder on those higher notes and strum it harder without having to worry about losing the overall tonality of the chords. Yeah, so the bridge, I broke it down. So I actually fingerpicked this section, and what I wanted to do was really highlight that first movement which happens on bass in the original recording, or even on the strings, and I really wanted that to stand out. So basically, what I did was take that B minor, and then I'm playing the B minor chord up to the B minor with the C sharp in the bass, up to the D in the bass. And then apart from that, I'm just keeping that power chord there. Because then I was originally chucking that high D in there too, but when it's such a fleeting moment that your ear actually feels that in anyway, coming from the B minor. So I went, okay, well, just for the ease of execution, I dropped that one note. And then it goes into the G. Run away with my heart, run away with my heart, run away with my love. And then from there, it went back to the standard riff for the broken down verse. But coming out of that, when I went into the chorus, that's where it sort of changed for me a little bit. I thought, well, this would be really cool after having all these different types of licks throughout the song, then to actually jump back into the original for just a small portion. So for that last chorus, I actually just strummed it the same way as the acoustic guitar part did on the original recording, with a way up high or down low, go wherever you will go. And then I jumped into the back into the original riff again and actually had them both running at the same time. Which in all honesty, I thought that would be really cool when I did it, but I actually did that by accident. I was mucking around with the arrangement and was trying to find a way that I could sneak the original back in there, and trying to find a way of doing it, and I actually muted the wrong part, and then was left with that acoustic guitar part and the guide vocal, and I went, oh, that's what I was looking for, great. So yeah, it's one of those things that could have taken me hours to find, but I happened to stumble across it in a couple of minutes, thank goodness. By the time I got to the solo, I felt the song had already built up a fair bit, and so I just needed that little thing to sort of push it over the edge a little bit. So I didn't do anything that was really out of the ordinary. I stuck to straight D major scales, having the song obviously in D, You know, chucking a couple of pentatonic-ish runs in there, you know, which is nothing out of the ordinary that I wouldn't usually do, where I'm basically taking a pentatonic scale, so in this case it'd be the relative minor, the B minor, and I'm thinking from a pentatonic perspective, but what I'm actually doing is superimposing a D major scale, or the D modes over the top of it. So I'm actually playing and thinking in B minor pentatonic, but I'm actually playing an A mixolydian, if that makes sense. So I end up with a 3-note string scale rather than the pentatonic being just the 2. Yeah, so it's something that I tend to do a lot. I'll take a pentatonic position and superimpose different modal positions over the top of it. So I've got my sort of home base, and then I've got a big collection of other notes which I can chuck in there to get different sounds and more exotic sounds. But look, other than that basic thought process behind the solo, there was nothing out of the ordinary in this solo, because I felt that by the time we'd reached that point, it just needed that little thing to push it over the edge. So and I thought something simple would do it. So.